personal growth strategist and the host of Strategy Rewind podcast, the podcast that focuses on the mindset and strategies necessary for your breakthrough moment. I'm so happy that you would be connected here today, and I'm really excited because we've been able to go live for 28 days. All through the month of February, we've been going live on the Wisdom application, and this of the month of February, and we are starting a new month. We are heading into day 60 of the new year, which is exciting. One of the biggest things that takes place is that the first day of the year is filled with a lot of optimism. And the idea would be that you would be able to ride the wave of that feeling of first Monday, right? The first Monday, that first day of the new year, when you can hit the ground running, so to speak, and you're ready and excited. One of the things that you would want to try to harness, if possible, is that feeling of that first day of the new year. Again, that feeling tends to slip away fairly quickly, which is why I like saying how many days we are into the year. So the fact that we're just getting ready to hit day 60 here of the first, of this year, I think that is really powerful. So there seems to be a stigma behind Mondays. Every Monday of the year is observed as a dreadful start of the business week. The alarm goes off early in the morning, and you're still feeling the effects of the weekend. And yet, you have to get up, right? Alarm goes off, you got to get up. The temptation between hitting the snooze button and getting up begins to settle in. Now, whether the weekend was highly productive and fun or just a drag, nothing seems to be worse than hearing the alarm on Monday morning. And yet, the first Monday of the year is met with high optimism. The idea here would be that you would harness that optimism and that you would take it with you every single day of the year. What I want to talk to you today about is exactly how do we reinvent ourselves. The idea is that you should be reinventing yourself I would say every 10 years at least. You should look back and notice the drastic change. You should be able to notice the changes that have taken place in your life. And so when we talk about actually being able to reinvent yourself, again, to me, I look at the fact that it should be every 10 years. But you should be able to determine, as I've spoken in recent episodes, when the new year starts for you. And so it may be that, when we talk about puberty, there are individuals that are known as late bloomers. And late bloomers are those individuals who they did bloom, but not at the age that everyone assumed they would, right? Everyone is maybe 10 years old and just growing 6 feet tall. Everyone is 12 years old and just developing massively. And then you have that one individual who is still short, who isn't quite there yet. And it's like, all right, what's going on with this one? And then eventually what happens is that, boom, they bloom, right? And some individuals call them a late bloomer, but the truth is that the time to bloom will come. And there's a quote that I read once which says, the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. And that's a powerful quote, right? The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. Listen, there is no worse feeling than being stuck. This is doubly true if you are a leader, right? If you have people that are following you, if you have children, if you have neighbors or individuals that you have direct influence. Listen, feeling stuck can make you think that you're just not doing things right, that you're not cutting it. And worst of all, because you feel that way, you almost continue to dig yourself into that hole. It makes you think and believe that what you're doing isn't working. and that you aren't making a difference or having an impact. That's what that feeling of being stuck is like, right? The fascinating thing is that you can be doing well in life and your career and still feel stuck. How many individuals do you know like that? Or maybe you feel like that. Like everything seems to, from the outside looking in, everything seems to be clicking, but you feel like you're still, maybe still on that hamster wheel, just running in place. You can even find that harmony between your work life and home life and still feel stuck. Everything seems to be flowing together and still you feel stuck. Growth is an interesting thing, right? Because we understand that growth welcomes change, yet many of us run away from change, and we run away like if it was the plague or the next COVID. The truth is, if we realize something, if we realize that if we wish to grow, the idea of feeling stuck is not what we want to have, right? It's repugnant. Feeling stuck, but yet wanting to grow. The idea that the only thing that has to change in your life in the last 12 months is only the date is genuinely heartbroken, right? To think the only thing that's changed the last 59, 60, 62 days is only the date and only the year and only whatever the clock says. That's heartbreaking, especially when you want to change. So, what do we do? What do we do when we don't feel like we're changing the way we want to? When we feel like we can't take control? Well, this is where you have to reinvent yourself. And as the previous quote that I mentioned says, the bad news is that time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. So that's awesome, right? Because if you're the pilot, that means that you're in control. So we need to change the perspective of life is happening too fast that I can't catch up versus I need to make sure that I'm documenting and controlling what's happening in my life. The interesting thing about a plane is that if it's heading one direction, right, if it's heading to Chicago, but it takes just 2 inches to the left, its course is going to be totally different. 2 inches to the right, its course is going to be totally different. It needs a specific route in order to get there. And in your life, understand that you are the pilot. Now, you may have gone 2 inches to the right or 2 inches to the left, but you can always find a new runway. You can always turn back around. You can always start over. If nothing was in your way, what would you do? If nothing was in your way, what would you do? Stop, stop for a moment here, because I know that your mind is racing. Like, man, if nothing was in my way, then I would do X, Y, Z. Please don't start thinking of the things in your way as a limitation. Start seeing them as crates and join the crate challenge. Do you remember a few years back when everybody was doing the crate challenge? Where they were taking these milk crates, these juice crates, and they were piling them up and they were jumping over them. You see, you have to start a vision of these difficulties are either opportunities or this is going to be the end of me. And that's something that you have to address within your mindset. So often we look at the difficulties and we say, this is the end of me. But just consider your issues, consider your troubles, consider what's happening as crates, and say, okay, today I joined the crate challenge. Although it's a couple years removed, listen, the first necessary thing is to decide. Decide. Decide what are you going to do with fear? Because truly fear isn't going away. My friends, fear isn't going to go away. Therefore, consider how your relationship with fear has been thus far. If fear has paralyzed you from being the person you've wanted to be, then declared to yourself today, I'm built for this. Right? You have to then believe I'm built for this. And you can make this your mantra. You can make this your phrase for this year. Whenever you feel fear coming in, whenever you feel uh, doubt creeping in, whenever you feel as though the things are piling up and the pressures of the to-do list are piling up, you can easily take a stop for a moment and say, I'm built for this. Now, what does this mean? I'm built for this. UILT. I'm built for this means I'm brave, unstoppable, impactful, legendary, tenacious. I'm built for this. Brave, unstoppable, impactful, legendary, tenacious. This is what you have to start declaring in the face of all of these challenges. This is how you reinvent yourself, by changing the way you view yourself. Remember, fear can only fuel you or freeze you, but you decide. Fear can only fuel you or freeze you, but you decide. How many times you have been filled with fear because of, I don't know, maybe the neighbor's dog got loose and all you decided to do was run, right? And you were like, I'm out of here, right? Because the fear that you felt let you know, I got to get out of here. So fear can either fuel you or freeze you, but you decide. And in your journey to reinvent yourself, it's time to decide differently. Maybe the fear of doing something greater, doing something different has you paralyzed. It's frozen you in your steps. Well, how about allowing it to fuel you? How about allowing it to fuel you? Here's the thing, you can choose your fear. Are you more afraid of the ridicule that'll come if you try something new, or are you more afraid of stagnation? Choose your fear. One thing I've learned is that when you're trying something new, you're going to feel silly. You're going to feel out of place. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Of course, because it's new. You're stretching yourself out of your comfort zone. But if you continue doing it, you build momentum. And if you build momentum, you become unstoppable. So now you have to choose your fear. Am I more afraid of looking silly because I'm trying something new, or am I afraid of just not trying at all? Fear is no longer your master. If your intention is to reinvent yourself, fear is no longer your master. See, it's not that you don't feel fear, but you've got to decide what you're going to do with it. And when you declare the words, I'm built for this, when you say, I'm built for this, brave, unstoppable, impactful, legendary, tenacious, when you say, I'm built for this, what you're saying is, I will not let fear master me. I will not let it paralyze me. And now that you are aware of the changes you aim to make in your life or career, you have to then understand what exactly has taken place, right? So you have to be able to say, okay, I don't longer want to be this way. Well, what is this way? Well, this way is the way I've been operating. Well, which way have you been operating? Well, under fear, I've been paralyzed. I haven't been moving. I've been pulling the trigger. I've been too afraid to speak, to share my message, to speak to people, to expand outside my network, to expand outside my circle. Okay, so what are you going to do now? Well, now I decide to speak. Okay, what does that look like? Because you can't just say, I decide to speak and still keep the muzzle on. You can't decide that you're going to be legendary and still decide to stay silent. Either fear is no longer your master and you will now reinvent yourself, or you decide to stay in the same position. Now, as you seek to reinvent yourself, your why must be well defined and understood. If you want your job to give you a promotion. The question is why? Why do you want that promotion? Or maybe you want to quit your job. Why? What's motivating you to want to leave that job? Or maybe you wish to feel happy or proud. And still, the question is why? Why do you want to feel that way? Maybe you're not happy with where you are. The question is why? And you've got to sit with yourself and ask yourself these questions. Often we neglect diving into the why behind our actions, leaving us with undesired results. Your why cannot be your relatives. It cannot be simply financial gain. It cannot be something that's just passing by. It cannot be to impress someone else or obtain more money. It has to be more profound than that. By taking the necessary steps, you may bring joy to those loved ones, or by taking the necessary step, you may find yourself in a lot of wealth. But that can't be what fuels you, and it can't be your why. Because then when you've obtained it, you may find yourself feeling very empty. The intention is the intention is essential when aiming to reinvent yourself. And you must come to terms with what pushes you to do so. What is that driving force? What is it that's moving you to want to reinvent yourself? Now, you may find that the very thing you thought was motivating you was actually keeping you at shore, keeping you at bay, keeping you away from being able to go deeper, to go farther, to grow even more. Now, remember, we've decided to kick fear to the curb. This means we must decide that hella high water, we are built for this. This has to become your mantra as you enter into this new part of the year. Built for this. Brave, unstoppable, impactful, legendary, tenacious. I'm built for this. This has to be your mantra. Additionally, we've already defined the why, right? You've already taken the time to define the why and uncover the need to reinvent yourself. Now, you must evaluate your routines. Routines and habits form who you are. Routines and habits form who we are. And we are all clear that there is a better version waiting. But it is on the other side of reinvention. It's on the other side of taking the decision to reinvent yourself. Listen, George Lopez said once, he said, when things are bad, it's the best time to reinvent yourself. And if you feel like things are bad right now, great. If you feel like your back is on the wall, if you feel like you're coming to the end of yourself, great. By evaluating your habits and routines, you'll be able to peel back the onion layered truth of what daily actions you're taking or avoiding. What things are you procrastinating on and hoping that tomorrow you'll be able to deal with it, but tomorrow you still are feeling fear? This is the moment to decide. Once analyzing your habits and routines, you'll be able to set realistic goals, because what happens is that so often we're shooting for the stars or we're shooting for the moon, because if we miss the moon, at least we'll be among the stars. You shouldn't miss the moon if you're aiming for the moon. I don't want to be in the midst of the stars if I'm aiming for the moon. I want to be in the moon. That's where I want to be. But the reality is that so often we're not setting realistic goals. Or in attempting to set these goals, we're actually not analyzing our routines and our habits. By evaluating your habits and routines, you'll be able to peel back the onion layered truth of what daily actions you're taking or avoiding. Also, once analyzing your habits and routines, you'll be able to set realistic goals. Therefore, you help yourself by accepting that bad habits and routines are tied to the results you're seeing. It's not about blaming anyone else or saying it's because of this, that, the government, the weather, global warming, the economy. No, no. Just take a level of responsibility and say, you know what? I realize that my habits, my routines aren't the best. They're not the ones that I need in order to get to where I want to be. Therefore, you help yourself by accepting that bad habits and routines are tied to the results you are seeing. And to see something more splendid, right? To see something more grandiose, to see something powerful, to accomplish something more significant, you have to be honest with the person in the mirror. Imagine you were your friend. If you find it hard to acknowledge that they're your habits and your routines, imagine it was a friend of yours in the same position you're in. What advice would you give them? What would you tell them? Would you tell them that they're doing things the right way, or would you call them out like a good friend should? Write them a letter. Write them a letter. Imagine that the person in your situation is not you. Imagine it's your friend. And begin to write a letter to this friend, letting them know how you feel about their current status and where they are in life, and if they're doing good or you think they're doing bad. Write it as though you knew all the details because it's your friend. Once you've written the letter, read it out loud. Read it out loud to yourself. Go to your mirror and read it to yourself. If this task is challenging, good. It should be. Because you're digging deep into what's holding you back. You're peeling back the layers. You're being honest with yourself. And let's be clear, my friends. Oftentimes it's easy to give everyone else counsel, but it's hard to be honest with the person in the mirror. And that's what this challenge is about. See, if you intend on reinventing yourself this year, you're going to have to be honest with yourself. And as I always say, surround yourself with people that will nourish your vision. If you're deciding that this is the year that I'm going to be different, do different, live different, yeah, it's important to surround yourself with people that will nourish your vision. Just keep in mind, day one or one day, you decide, right? Today could either be day one, or you could say, you know what, I'll do this one day. Okay, you decide. But if you decided to reinvent yourself and walk towards a better you, remember to keep looking at what's ahead and not what you've left behind. If today you're listening to this and you're saying, absolutely, I've got to reinvent myself. Today is the day. Today is day one. Great. Remember to look forward. Remember to look ahead as opposed to looking to the old life, the old you, the old things you've left behind. Looking back is going to make you fall back. Right? Looking back is going to make you fall back into your old ways. Or, as a particular scripture tells us, remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not see this? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So if you have been going through the motions for the last 50 some odd days, as we now enter past day 60, as February has come to an end, and we are on month 3 of the year 2023. If you feel like you've been just floating around, this is the moment to reinvent yourself. This is the moment. And maybe you feel like things are bad. Well, in the words of George Lopez, when things are bad, it's the best time to reinvent yourself. So it's the time for you to begin to say these words: I'm built for this. I'm built for this. Brave, unstoppable, impactful, legendary, tenacious. Today's conversation was necessary, and I believe it's pivotal in your journey. But the question is, what's next? Where do you go from here? The next step is for you to set up a free 30-minute strategy session. Head over to miguellebron.com or click on the link in the show notes. It's necessary for you to take all of the things you've learned and apply them so that you can have a breakthrough moment.